Hey, yeah, and welcome back to the Steam Tunnels. We are here. It is TSG, sometimes known as the Steam Gentlemen. You're going to be formal if you're not into the whole brevity thing, man. Couple of announcements to just get off the checklist right off the bat. We have the Steam Gentlemen would like to congratulate Drugs for officially winning the war on drugs. That's good. That's been a long time coming. So, all right, good to know. You can swing on by the Steam Tunnels. You've got your trophy here for you. So you're good to know that is an announcement to all drugs who have definitely won the war on drugs. That nice little fantasy that was fed to us as children growing up there. All that, like we were actually going to mobilize and go to war.
Shout out to D Rugs.
Shout out to D-Rise. While we're here handing out things and handing out prizes, I've got a crown here for one Brett Favre, who is officially now a welfare queen. So you can come on down as well, pick up that crown, and we're in a coronating mood. We've got King Charles over in England now. Finally, 70-year-old man finally gets a job. Well done. Charlie, we never gave up on you that whole time. You prefer Charlie or Chuck? Which one is it?
Way to go, Charlie.
Way to go, Charles. Nicely done. 70-year-old man gets that. So I think that kind of clears off the docket there. But I think that's all the prizes we've got yet to bring out. If you are coming over here and joining us because you heard from my man, Dan Cummins, who was so kind as to give us a shout out. We record a couple weeks here in advance, so you heard that a couple of weeks ago, as was one of his pieces of advice. Coming over from Time Suck, thank you all so much for checking it out. Meat Sacks, welcome one and all. Hail Nimrod, all the good stuff there. But we're so glad to have you along on our little journey into pop culture and social commentary. I'm just tickled pink. I feel like I was at a concert and Geddy Lee gave me a shout out and personally and was like, yeah, oh my God, I almost had a stroke in my entire in my apartment over here. So good times. Welcome to it. Let's just keep some good love going and some good times going here. I can see that the Three of Clubs is smiling there. I'm just about to give him his intro anyway. So he's just smiling and grinning like the Cheshire Cat. How are we doing today, Three of Clubs?
Doing well. What it do? How do you do? I'm just smiling because I get a front row seat to listening and watching you. And I would like to give a special shout out to, as you said, the Meat Sacks, and don't get sleepy while you're here.
Yeah, we'll do our best to keep you engaged here. We got all that. You can bring in all the love and everything from the Suckverse. That was your very own Three Clubs, Mr. RaShaun Smith, and joining me as always. I'm so thankful for it every day to get to every week I get a chance to sit down and talk with these two guys. I am also joined by the star child himself, Gregory RaShaun, who I just found out does a frighteningly good Jimmy Swaggart impression, of which you know a guy for over a decade, and the next thing you know, he's doing a Jimmy Swaggart impression. Okay.
I mean, go ahead and put that on my list of talents. I'll take anything at this point. If I could pay for dinner with that, I'll do it.
The list of talents are multitudinous, man. You really got quite a large list of talents on your resume. And, I should have known in there that doing a old time 80s preacher who got caught quite literally with his pants down should have been on there. I should have known. I should have known. That's
yeah, I don't know how it never came up, but yeah, put that on my list, please.
Yeah, without a doubt. How's everything been treating you? What do you got going on today?
Oh, today? Not a whole hell of a lot, thank God. Weather is terrible here in New England. It is fall, but I'm not going to complain because when the seasons change as they should and it rains, it means the earth doesn't totally hate us. So
I'm with you.
So I'm in an upbeat mood, actually.
Yeah, there is that little thing. It's like, all right, You're not quite ready to kill us all just yet.
Clearly wants to keep us around for a little while longer.
I think the slipper's off and we're about to get
Earth.
Beaten. But yeah, I think the absolutely going to get a beaten with the Earth's flip flop here, at various times, without a doubt. And it's richly deserved. Let's be really honest here.
It's about time these guests went home.
We've been acting the fuck up. Okay. And we've been not listening. She tried COVID. She tried all these things to just go get to sit in a room, take the time out. No, didn't listen to any of it. No, didn't.
If the animal kingdom is one giant family, I sometimes imagine like literally all the other animals going to Mother Nature and pointing to us like, do you see this shit? Do you see? Like, how many different years do we have to deal with this? Look what they're doing now. You see this bullshit? Like, I feel like every single day, Mother Nature's like, I got it. I'm working on something. All right. Like, I can't get rid of them and all you. Like, I can't do it without getting rid of all you. Like, I'm trying. I tried some COVID shit. Those fuckers are resilient. They literally took their mask off and welcomed it in. So I don't know what to tell you. Like, I'm just doing my best. I'm trying not to kill all you guys, but I feel like even like parasites are like, look, not for nothing. We know what we do and we're proud of it, but these guys, holy shit,
fuckers,
right? They're writing textbooks for us.
These sons of bitches. Yeah, no, if it's all a apartment situation, we are the roommate that never fucking does the dishes, right? And always leaves the goddamn cereal bowl half full with the soggy cereal in the fucking sink.
We're the roommate practicing drums at 3 a.m. And oh, by the way, fun fact, we can't play the fuking drums.
There's no
rhythm.
Well, as always, you guys, I gotta tell you, we don't practice these things. I know it doesn't show. I know it seems like we are, nothing but consummate professionals and that we have this entire thing scripted out, but right there, we always just know where we're going and we always manage to stick the landing. Sometimes we stick it a little, like, as we said, like the latest Batman movie in the flying squirrel suit. There's a few bumps along the way, but that's bringing us around to our subject today. We are back to talk about some music. It's been a little while and it's an important part of our pop culture and our social commentary is getting down to some good music talk.
Well, I think it was Chuck Yeager that said successful or a good landing is one that you walk away from. A successful one is one where you can fly the plane again. So let's make sure we understand what kind of landing we're aiming for, because I think we're aiming for like decent. Okay.
All right. Yeah, absolutely.
Take out a house or two, maybe a lamb. Shout out to Donnie Darko.
There you go. We put out, I'm just saying, we put out we got to figure out that, that sometimes we just want to put that plane back together with a little bubble gum, a little scotch tape, whatever it takes. And then, our intent is to be here next week, taking off on that runway. But Brother Greg really, thought we should go back into some music this week. And I think he's goddamn right. We just had we're just coming off a murder month. Real quick, watch The Watcher, everybody, on Netflix. Check it out. Mr. Pinky up here, got it there. Man, you can watch it. I'll tell you the truth. Nice. Real story's scarier. That's all I'm gonna say. The real story.
Bobby Cavalli is fucking awesome. All right, I know I just did that, but I will watch that doing literally anything. It's funny because he's actually in a few like kids movies.
Yeah.
And my introduction to this dude, or actually when I started to recognize him, was from Boardwalk Empire, and then I saw him in credits for like kid movies. The dude is super super talented. Shout out to Naomi Watts and the rest of the cast. It really is.
Josh, a lot of good actors in that. A lot of good actors. Maybe
it's a great watch, but Bobby C, that dude, holy fuck. Take it down a notch, man. You're so good.
It only got one season, but I thought like his role, like the role he was born to play, he was the main character in Vinyl. God damn, he was good in that. Like that was just because he plays a sleazy record company owner from the 70s. I'm like, he was born to play it. He was
just
totally
make it
there.
that much easier for him.
Yeah, he was just right.
There's only two people I've seen pull off a successful, violent, naked scene where I'm more afraid of the naked person than any other entity that they put in the scene. One, shout out to Mr. Mortensen. We all know about that.
We all were going there. That's where we went.
I mean, I'll watch that scene anytime. That is just like phenomenal filmmaking. But the other, Bobby C in Boardwalk Empire. I'm just gonna lay out the scene. It's him, it's a prostitute, and there's people trying to assassinate him. And he is the baddest fucking person in the goddamn entire scene throughout, no matter what. Dick swinging. You're still like, yo, this dude is scary as fuck. Like I've never said that about someone who's just butt ass naked staring at me. But
I mean, I don't want to start our first fight. I know we want to get
boy.
going, but are we just gonna just disrespect Christian Bale in American Psycho like that? Like,
actually, I thought American
he was
Psycho
naked with
sucked.
a chainsaw. I mean,
I thought American Psycho sucked, but if we really want to go there, I guess if I'm stepping over anyone, I'm stepping over Ving Rhames and Baby Boy. I mean,
okay, all right.
if
All
I'm
right.
gonna have to call a shot,
I guess we're
this
gonna have to
dude's
start.
cooking breakfast in your mom's kitchen after he just went to town on her ass naked. If that ain't setting up a signal, I don't know what the fuck to tell you. But I know Baby Boy found out, punched in the chest. Call your mom. Call your mom.
We're gonna have to set up a sort of like our own Mr. Skin site with all the naked dudes and fight scenes. Like that's clearly we'll have to put that on our socials there, right? A list of times where you can see your naked dudes, quite literally swinging dicks going after each other. But all right, well, since
it's old day Greece Olympics,
we did mention that he played going back there that we were talking about a sleazy record producer in the 1970s. So maybe that'll come up today. But yeah, let's bring it on back to that which soothes the savage beast. No, not necessarily swinging dicks going around and everybody trying to punch on each other, but let's talk about musical eras. Let's talk about those times. Let's talk about those movements, that weird kind of thing where just things kind of came together and gelled in the zeitgeist and really got us thinking and really got us trying to move in the same direction. What direction that was, well, that changed with the time and the place, but that's kind of a weird thing that humans do, that we get together and that we try and really put out everything that we're feeling in this emotional way and try to make that music reflect what we want in that time, which is usually all the same thing. We really want just a slightly better life, maybe a little more peace, hopefully, maybe clean water now. Maybe the planet not to smack us with its flip-flop. But well, let's bring on up the Star Child here. I want to get into his thoughts right now and listen to what he's thinking about. What time period are we talking about today, musically speaking?
Well, I'm going to come out of the gate and cheat.
Of course.
Because I'm going to do two.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to do two. I'm going to go ahead and do two because I feel like, especially as I hope this doesn't step on you guys' toes, but especially, as Americans, let's be honest, like there is one most important moment in American music that pretty much defined it. And you probably would not have any real substantial American music without it. And another one that's just my favorite that I feel like doesn't come up enough in conversation, these days, but definitely on here. So I wanted to bring it up. So first and foremost, right out of the gate, New Orleans, Congo Square. Right? I mean, it's got to be Congo Square. I mean, Congo Square was the birthplace of so many forms of music. Obviously, you can definitely go across the South. You could definitely go to New England, and there was a lot happening musically around that period because people were just, coming over to what the colonies and just kind of finding themselves and being able to make a voice away from Europe. Not to say that people weren't still pretty Eurocentric at the time, but there was a desire to be as un-British as possible too, to be as un-French as possible too. So, people were willing to listen to a lot of things, so don't forget, you're not going to survive unless even this is true to this day, you get that lucrative white audience. And this happened in Congo Square in 1817. It's kind of a known fact that, New Orleans was kind of where it was at musically, socially. It was a very cosmopolitan town. It was the place to be, especially if the French are going there, automatically cool points. You win. The French think you're cool and you're worth going to. You're making it happen. But it was also one of the centers for the slave trade. And as slaves, you pretty much have no choice but to let your imagination keep you alive. Like it starts with an instinct and an improvisation, but it also turns into, we need this because, we're here and it's important for your survival too, to be able to express yourself even in those limited conditions. And they did it. They did it. They're beautiful people. So every Sunday, this was a thing in Congo Square. The slaves were allowed to dance and sing and make their music, which was kind of a big deal. It was kind of a big deal. I mean, it's Sundays, is a Christian country, and you're letting these slaves, express themselves freely like this, like that's kind of shocking. Like, how important, expressing yourself and keeping your traditions are. That's why you have so many rules against them doing the other ones. But they were allowed to dance and sing in Congo Square, and it would attract an audience, and it became a thing in that part of the city, and next thing you know, white people were showing up in crowds. Like, it was really turning into an event. And slowly but surely, this music starts to develop. They start to get instruments. That starts to change the fabric of the music. So you're getting this African diaspora and Caribbean diaspora. Point that out. The sounds from the Caribbean were filtering into, and it was just creating all of this music. It was the beginning of bluegrass. It was the beginning of the blues. It was the beginning of course, jazz music. Because you had all of these leftover instruments from soldiers. What else are you gonna do with it? There are plenty of them laying around, so they picked them up and started to improvise with them. That's the quote right there. Especially the blues, particularly the change that it made to gospel music, particularly the change it made to bluegrass. I mean, that is American music. Like, that is the cornerstone, the seed of American music, and it's been massive ever since. So, I mean, to talk about, the reason I picked that also is because to talk about Congo Square is you automatically pointing out that all of the other genres that it broke off into, obviously the most being rock and roll, but and pop music, broke off into, you're already recognizing its global superiority. It really is. I mean, if it isn't that music by itself, it's been influenced by it, definitely. And this is what I want to say, shout out to the Japanese, because those people can play some jazz music. Okay, there is good jazz music coming out of Japan, and they deserve a hell of a lot of credit for it. You got to love the Japanese. When they grab something, they go all the way with it. It's not like, stomach turning where most people who try to pick up something, kind of half-assed and make it awkward. No, the Japanese will make it fantastic. So that you have to start with Congo Square. You have to start with the contribution of slaves, and you have to talk about how intrinsically in these American art forms, you have a story of survival. You just do. And that's something that definitely separates it from European music of the time. So Congo Square to start with, but my other favorite, got to mention reggae music, because the reason I mention reggae music is because I know mad Jamaicans. I know mad so many Jamaicans, because you grow up in Mattapan, you grow up South Providence, like you're gonna see a lot of minorities, and it's a beautiful thing. And I should say different immigrant groups, and it's a beautiful thing. It honestly is. And I think that was definitely one of my favorite things about growing up there. But Jamaicans, they're special because for such a tiny island, think about their global influence, right? I mean, think about how many tiny countries, small countries the size of Jamaica, have such a global influence. I mean, that says a lot. Like, it was, I think Rolling Stone magazine said Bob Marley was the most influential artist of the 20th century, because yes, absolutely. Like, you go anywhere in the world, they will know Bob Marley, they will know reggae, and they will know Jamaica. It would be hard pressed to think of a country that didn't, and holds Jamaica and reggae music in that high esteem. I mean, the peak of it, was definitely in the 70s, obviously post-colonial. It wasn't really even post-colonialism, but you had a great deal of corruption that was also supported by the British. And you had Jamaicans in England that were also dealing with oppression. So if you were in England, and racism in England. So if you were in England and you were part of the diaspora, then you had this really wonderful lifeline to a kind of music that was all usually political, but it was also love songs too. It'd be a little bit strange when you're like really feeling some reggae music and then they're talking about like violence and corruption. But you walk that line, you feeling the vibe. And just the places in the world where Jamaica has been able that where reggae music has been able to go. A big thing for a long time. I'm going to say that the 70s, obviously, it took a lull in the 80s, but 90s dance hall was massive, absolutely massive. And for most of us our age, that's really the time we're thinking about. We're thinking about Shabba Ranks, and we're thinking, right? Exactly, Shabba. You know what I'm saying? But if you were in the know, it was actually, it was obviously Marsha Griffith and Barris Hammond and Buju and Sizzla and so many others that cropped up out of the 90s. And I mean, they were cropped up out of the 90s. I mean, they're doing fine financially, like they're doing this, but it was the birth of that, and that explosion that again put Jamaica on the map, and put Jamaica on the map politically as well. They became something that everyone could rally around as a symbol of rebellion, and it was revolution. And I think that if you're going to give the world a gift, especially the poor people of the world, I can't think of anything better than reggae music. I think Jamaica just gave them one of the greatest gifts that any country could give. I will absolutely put them up there with I don't know, Greece, as far as being a tiny
Second
as far
Greek
as
reference.
being a tiny country that has had a massive global influence. Real quick, I'll tell you one of my favorite Bob Marley stories, because I was watching a document a long time ago, but I was watching a documentary on the civil war in Sudan, and at the very end, they're asking this one fighter, what keeps him going, and he starts singing Bob Marley. That was beautiful. That was absolutely beautiful. The Civil War still turned out to be awful, but the fact that it was what was keeping the fighters going. I mean, that's all you need to say about reggae music.
Well, that's a statement for you. Anything that
Well,
can keep you up in the foxhole and keep your spirits up as best you can under the most horrific circumstances.
It's funny how you ended just now with Bob Marley and you sort of started with Japan, because Japan is one of the biggest fans of reggae since the 70s because of Bob Marley. And when I say a big supporter, I mean like they're literally Japanese Rasta, not to disrespect the Rastafarian originals and faith. But there are people in Japan who quite personally and sincerely feel like they are, subscribing to that lifestyle and committed their lifestyle to it, all because of Mr. Bob Marley showing up there in the early 1970s and, like you say, giving the gift of that music.
As white people refer to him as Bob. That's all you need to say.
Also,
Bob.
shout out to Club One in Providence, or at least it used to be, because that kind of was one of the last dance halls around. I know because I've been to it, and I've been in a dance hall at Club One in Providence, which was so awesome. I'm fairly certain it was in someone's basement, but that was a pure dance hall where you straight up had the dance hall general barking commands and orders into the microphone, muffled completely. But like, if you knew, if talk about if you know, people who knew, and everyone else was like, what is he saying? What's he saying? Like, what kind of music is this? And it's like, all right, cool. Just give me another red stripe.
Rashad, did you need to call me out on the show like that? Was that really necessary? I thought we had a friendship going here. Come on, man. Did you need to call me out like that?
Josh, if I really thought you were there or be there, then I would be pointing out that I would be next to you, being like explaining to you, but also not dancing. Because if it ain't the two-step, I'm probably not doing it.
I'm gonna quickly draft off of Greg here and just say, as far as Japan and season on things and, doing it right and then taking it to that next level. Shout out to Yamazaki whiskey, because when the Japanese do whiskey, they do whiskey right. My favorite, smoothest drinking one, and took top place in the Scotch a couple of years ago in Scotch tasting contest. So there you go. Just proving Greg's point.
I have some here for you whenever you're ready.
You got it. Oh, I'll be there when we finish. As we go, I have to say, I love that you're talking about, going on in Congo Square and down in Nolens. I love the fact historically of what you're pointing out there of, letting your slaves out for the day, which is a little, okay. It's hard for me to put aside that concept because it's a little frightening to me right there that, yes, this was a thing. It was all right. We put people out in the park and let them play. But I also, on the flip side, I just always imagine like this completely ripped dude with his shirt off dancing there and all these white women going around just getting like, did the air just get more humid here?
I mean, that's fair.
That's fair. I think
fair.
that, yeah.
I feel like more of the conversation was like a month later, like, see, and now they want their freedom.
See?
That's why we didn't let them before. Now they want freedom.
Now they want
Way
freedom.
to go, you guys.
Oh my God. And next thing
First
they're going to be
singing, then the actual control of their life and destiny. What next?
Lattes. That's what's next. I'll tell you right now. Lattes.
Pumpkin spice.
Yeah, lattes.
No, that's awesome, Greg. I mean, that's interesting enough. I was following you and it's fun how we learn history and how we use pop culture to learn history. But I learned about that watching Dave Grohl's documentary, Sonic Highways. When he went to New Orleans, he writes a song and it includes a lot about that because he wanted to include that history in the New Orleans song that he did. Of course, he's still making his own thing and doing his own music, but that's the beauty, as you say, of music, right? Is that it all does interconnect and that you are trying to learn, you're trying to take influences, you're trying to learn the history and learn what people were doing and people were living. So, that was a couple of years ago, but that was a good chance for me to open up to another subject and keep chasing little through lines through history, right? We're always trying to find them there. And I think, that's what keeps bringing us back to the subject matter, brings us back to pop culture and our social commentary as we go.
And as far as American music, I'm not exaggerating. Like you could say Motown, you could say Sun Records. I always say funk.
Oh,
because
absolutely.
Funk must.
It must.
It must.
Yes, absolutely.
But it all started in Congo Square. Like that was it.
Without a doubt. It's pretty amazing how you find these throughways. Well, since you let us off with the cool, allow me to come in here and just give that record scratch and just who the fuck let this guy in here? But all right,
Josh is the guy that comes to the party and goes ahead and puts his Rush mix on.
You betcha.
Don't worry, guys. I'll take care of this.
I got this.
I see the music is an issue right now. Don't worry. Hold on. I'll just hook up my phone and
who the fuck let him connect to the Bluetooth?
And yeah, that came in, and just to let you know, I've got the next generation all on tap because my fifth grader Isaac. His teacher wrote us a letter saying, so Isaac likes Rush a lot. He knows all the words to Limelight. So it breeds true. And in this case, I'm not surprised because he might as well be a clone. I can show you pictures. It's there. But I will stay away from the Canadian Holy Trinity for today, as far as, when we're talking about scenes though. But yeah, I'm still going to be that white guy in the room. And I'm still going to take us back to that time yonder of slap bracelets and lots of tight haircuts with high flat tops and lots of hair gel.
I thought you said you were the same way from the Canadians.
Yeah, these are tighter because the Canadians keep it longer in back. We would shave it down here in the back for American style. Now I'm gonna bring you back to that time in the 90s, that glorious time when, looking at the weather outside, we all, for some reason, thought we were from Seattle. But just when that time coalesces, and I too, like you, Greg, I'm going to do two periods disparate in history. But, it is truly amazing when you just consider how sometimes fate's weird like that, right? You get this West Coast city way up there in the Pacific Northwest where things are kind of cold, things are kind of foggy the entire time. And you just have these bands, the literal garage bands, just grinding this shit out, right? In a city that's probably been overlooked from a musical perspective for a long time. The last thing that had come out of Seattle was in the mid 80s, a band called Queensryche. Okay. This band, again, kind of goes with Rush in that regard. It's got like a nerd fandom. They did a whole concept album. It has like, nothing in there as far as going on, nothing that relates to the grunge movement that would emerge. That came out like it was shot out of a cannon. A whole series of strange events. Talking about Dave Grohl earlier. Guy travels across country with his first band out of Washington. They get stuck in LA. They lose their bass player. And somebody says, hey, I know these guys out of Seattle. You should go and try it. They need a drummer. You ought to drive on up there and try out for him. He goes on up. Sure enough, a couple, probably under a year later, they released Nevermind. And goddamn, if it just didn't, I was just coming out of high school and going into college, and I don't know why, didn't have that much to be angsty about, but sure enough, here I am, angsty as fuck, and that first part of it was the time and the place. We were coming out of the 80s, right? We had a lot of new wave music, a lot of stuff coming out, and on keyboard, a lot of keyboard stuff, and The Cure, and it's all good. I still listen to it, still like a lot of it, but those first couple of chords, right, from Smells Like Teen Spirit hit, right? You just heard that, that and then the fucking drums kick in, and Dave Grohl's on the drum, and you just knew it was the first time you heard it. Buckle up, you're in for a fucking ride, right? We are here, we are back. Even Dave Grohl said, for me, he was a self-taught drummer, and he said, for me, it was kind of easy because I'd wait for Kurt to hit the distortion pedal on his guitar, and then I knew I was just off to the fucking races, right? That's how that would go. They had that quiet part in between. But boom, shortly after that, around the same time, Pearl Jam hits, right? And they're out of a group. They're a combination group from an earlier sound that we discovered later on from a band called Mother Love Bone, from a guy named Andy Love, who unfortunately overdosed on heroin. And then that brings together a momentary supergroup called Temple of the Dog, which has Chris Cornell from Soundgarden, yet another power band coming out of this. It was just, it really was this damn absolutely bursting forth of, white angst. Again, maybe people that didn't have a lot to be angsty about.
So edgy.
But we fucking tried. Everybody wanted to wear flannel, right? We all we went from those neon colors to that dull flannel, and the chain wallets and everything else. All of a sudden, it was just there, and it brought it to the fore, and boom. But there's just something so special about it. I still really love listening to a lot of that stuff. I know it's a time, it's a place. I was in school and I was in college, but let me take you further back in time just to stay with me here, because this one's a little bit crazy. I'm going to go further back in time to the 1960s, early 1960s in Greenwich, New York. Coming into another time that I think influences grunge, that was in its weird way the grunge of the day, and I'm talking about folk music. Yeah, okay, I told you I was coming in white. There was no two ways here. Like I'm gonna own the Caucasian here in the room.
I'm impressed,
but
yeah,
this one has another,
like a lot of forms of music that actually start black, but yeah,
fair enough, absolutely. But this particular, I'm just focusing on one little microcosm, and where I do have a personal connection to it is my father was a part of this movement, moving out of Chicago, moved to the Village in New York, disappointing his father no end, who was an industrialist and had founded his own company. And there goes my father fucking around and smoking as much weed as is humanly possible. Something he never really wanted to talk about till later on. And my father was part of a band called the Just Fore. They pressed an album. It does exist out there. Interestingly enough, their most success, I haven't been able to find it. It's tough in our digital age, but it would be fun. They made a commercial for Stroh's beer that apparently was the most success they ever had. And that was a part of what drove them apart, because that was the first time they got paid. And then it was, everybody was, hey, I'm the real talent behind this band. But you look at
Speaking of which, who's paying us on this?
Yeah, well, I got your check. It's coming. But you have Dylan coming out of that. You have Pete Seeger, right, coming out with, on his guitar, no less, written across it, "This machine kills fascists," right? I mean, there's something there. There is still something there that's still very important. It's a much mellower vibe. I mean, without a doubt, right? But tying all this back to it, there's something about that. There was a sort of waywardness to it. Maybe I look back on it with a much more, I was not alive, right? But because of how I relate to the world, I have to tie it into a movie. If you have never seen it before, it's a Coen Brothers movie, so automatically I love it, and half the country will hate it. It's called Inside Llewyn Davies. And speaking of my father, which I can't talk about folk music without talking about my dad. This movie, though these two gentlemen never met my father and never knew of his existence, they wrote his story and put it up on screen. I mean, it just is so amazing that Oscar Isaac in that movie looks like my dad. And he doesn't always, but just the way he looks, he's doing the same thing. I'm sure he was couch surfing, right? There's questions going on. Turns out there was even a half sister I didn't know about till long time after that happens in this era. That, as I was told, it was because a girlfriend of his hooked up with Bob Dylan and he was pissed off. So he hooked up with this other woman. So thanks, Bob, for, if it hadn't been for one to the next, I wouldn't have been born. So yes, in that weird thing, in the weird way of bed swapping that was in the folk music back in the 60s, I get to owe my very existence to Bob Dylan. So, all right, a couple Jewish guys doing each other good, but definitely, take some time, look through some of those older things. There's a lot there. Bob Dylan's a better songwriter than he is a singer, but he wrote some incredible songs. Pete Seeger, absolutely amazing. Arlo Guthrie, Woody Guthrie, excuse me, just managing to trip over my own tongue there. A lot of great artists coming out of that, and even going back to some of the Irish tradition in it, the Weavers, and a few other things that influenced pop music later on. Mamas and the Papas coming out later on in the 60s. A lot of those sounds that even occasionally you hear it in the through lines of today. Artists like Lord Huron, who's had a few hits out there and things like that. It's still just another thing. It's another little slice of time in America. It was sort of the beginning. It leads into a lot of the more revolutionary music of the hippie era and in the 60s and into Woodstock. It's that seedling that gives birth to it. It gives birth to the mighty oak that is the hippie movement, right? The beatniks and all the folkies. So just a little love from those two cities going on out there at different times that, for whatever reason, spoke to this little angsty kid in the suburbs.
Oh yeah, I mean, real fast, I just want to clean up one thing I said when I said folk music was like a lot of forms of music, black. A lot of people need to understand a few things about history before they get upset about anything else real fast.
Oh, yeah.
So the funniest thing that I've ever heard about the United States and the current rifts that it's had in the last 20 years, and someone pointed out, when it comes to being a country, the age of the country is like a teenager versus all the other countries in the world. So like really, they're just doing teenager shit. And when you keep that in line and you understand that basically since the time Josh was talking about, since the 60s, a lot of cool things were coming from teenagers, then you have to understand the reason why American music is so profound is because, to be fair to the rest of the world, they were kind of operated off of like a lot of different other musics for thousands of years. The creation in the United States created a lot of new things. One being the creation of a new class of people called African Americans that were completely in the throes of absolute horrid situations for hundreds of years. So what comes from that, just like an angsty fucking teen from the suburbs who gets together with other angsty teens from suburbs and kick out something so profound as the grunge movement, like Josh just talked about, you get hundreds of years from that, unchecked, completely unfiltered. So by the time it gets to other people, it comes out in so many different forms that, yeah, you can trace a lot of things to it. And if you're like, well, that doesn't explain how like my ancestors in Ireland were folk singers back in the 1700s. Like, again, think about the country we're talking about. United States started in the early 1600s when you really understand it. So for the fact that it get to Ireland 100 years later, not that hard to believe.
Not at all. And you're riffing, you're rolling over there, man. I see you. You are coming right out. You are coming right out onto the ice and skating right towards me, swinging right on. So I want to get you into your 10 minutes, man.
Well, no, Star Child had something to say. I mean, we all do a post. That was just my post. I'm just gonna be quiet after that.
You got it.
Well, you say the 90s, and I mean, really, the 90s was a special time. Yeah, I'll go ahead and sound like that old fuddy-duddy, but it's absolutely true.
You're right.
Like the rock and roll, heavy metal, industrial rock, hip hop, R&B, like everything was Latin music, pop music, world music. All of a sudden that became a category. But reggae and so many other things were all at the top of the charts, not just, people with movie soundtracks, like people, not just, around, but were at the top of the charts. And one of those was folk, like Tracy Chapman, like that was her thing.
Yep.
Ani DeFranco, that was the beginning of Ani DeFranco. Like there was like there was a movement definitely back towards that towards folk music too. So I think when you brought up the 90s and grunge, like you got to mention that the 90s also had a folk scene.
I think that was what was so fun about it.
I'm sorry,
fucking wallflowers, man.
MTV,
they got MTV,
out there. MTV Unplugged.
Oh yeah. No, I think that was
Bob Dylan's like, who the fuck are these guys? It's like awkward, man.
I think that was what was so fun about the 90s is it felt very open again. Like there was like, it was cool to like everything, it was that eclectic feel. Like everybody had those, remember those giant CD things that we had, like those books of CDs that we had, like they looked like tombs.
Shout out to the people you drive by that still have their CD sleeves on their car visor. I'm looking at them like, respect.
We see you.
Right.
Keep it going. I doubt it's still working, but yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
We see you, CD sleeve drivers. We know you. TSG remembers.
Jay-Z Unplugged is one of my favorite albums of all time. It is damn near magical, but Portishead Unplugged is even better.
That was amazing, and let's give some love to LL Cool J when he did it unplugged. He rocked that shit.
You do that.
Even LL baby, ladies.
I love LL, but you
if I can, because you started with Nirvana, I actually wasn't listening to Nirvana, and then I heard the Unplugged, and they did that version of The Man That Sold the World.
Yes.
And then I was like, all right, maybe they're not awful. So then I went and got on the Nirvana train, actually really late.
I thought you were going to say About It Girl.
Like I will smash some Smashing Pumpkins and Soundgarden, and Tool.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
I mean, man,
no Alice in Chains
episode on Tool.
No love from my guy Lane.
Oh God, I can't believe now. I feel like I'm having a 3 Clubs moment where I'm chastising myself, and one of my best friends who grew up with me during that time is going to call me up and kick my ass for not mentioning Alice in Chains.
Well, to be fair, you and I have both spoken about Alice in Chains in different ways in multiple episodes.
Well, all right,
it's landed to both of us in different ways.
Much love. All right. Well, I try to have you coming in so hot there, 3 Clubs, but I want you 10 minutes here, dude. Let's go with this, man. I want to see what you.
All right. Well, we already know I don't follow rules, and we already know I definitely don't come prepared. So I'm gonna run out of the ring, run into the crowd real fast, and totally like whether this is part of my time or not. But I'm gonna talk about my family like normal. But I want to give a special shout out to my parents, especially my mom. But really shout out to my parents, because you want to talk about torture. They sat in a fucking house that I know definitely wasn't sound controlled and listened to their 13-year-old son play Smells Like Teen Spirit about 100 times in a row for a good 5 to 6 weeks. And I somehow am still here living. Because hey, we're talking like the early 90s. That it was 50-50 if they were gonna get caught, or even if they did, that bad of time. I mean, the 90s were a different beast. We were throwing fucking lawn darts at each other like 5 years before, and 5 years before that, lead paint was totally okay. Like, if you follow the time, matter of fact, all right, go ahead and start my timer, because really, I'm just gonna go ahead and spin this book report like I read it, but we all know I read the sleeve on the way walking into class. So here we go. Let's see if we Chuck Yeager this bitch. So I'm just going to go ahead and give you a story about me and music, and that's going to lead to the era that I'm talking about, that frankly, the only way I can categorize it is controlled by goddamn monsters, like just absolute ruthless, horrible individuals. I'm not going to say they were in line with like studio executive horror shows that you hear about, the horrible and continued abuse that people are going through and went through, and on and on and on. I'm not even going to try to make light of that. I'm just going to point out on a local level, these fuckers were goddamn monsters. I'm going to get to them real fast. But to understand why they're monsters, I need to give you a history. And the funny part about my life that I was thinking about the other day, and it's funny that we talked about the 90s in the way that we're doing it, because I had mentioned, I think even on TSG episode, a few episodes back, we totally were spoiled in the 90s. We were so focused on getting to the next millennia that we were just not giving a shit about what was happening in the 90s. There are creators trying their fucking ass off to either get away from the legends decades before, sometimes even 5 years back, like people just wouldn't let go of. So they were trying to get over that shit, but they didn't have the CGI bullshit that they could fall back on, and at least in a good way, because believe me, some of them tried. Some of them went for that high jump, and they fucking missed hard. But, it's all right. They tried. But, like, when we look at the 90s, a lot of people were fucking trying in ways that, honestly, I'm not going to sit here and say it's not happening. I'm not part of the social scene now. I'm not part of what's updated. I still listen to shit that literally came out like 20 years ago, like I'm rocking it like it just came out. Like, I got no problem with that. I'm on it. It's fine. It's whatever. But I'm just pointing out, if I'm going to get nostalgic, like the 90s, I'm not saying it was above other decades I lived in, because I'm about to point out some shit that I grew up through that is going to explain the goddamn monsters I'm pointing out are goddamn monsters, because let me be clear, they are goddamn monsters. So anyway, the 90s, there's so much.
RaShaun, are they goddamn monsters? I'm just checking here.
I mean, I'm going to have to go through my notes and reference a few things, but I'm going to land on there, goddamn monsters. All right, so people, you have to understand the music evolution in which I've experienced my own life. And you also cannot, for a single second, I get it, if you're like 18 listening to this, it's probably not going to land, but you're also part of the generation that's going through the 90s right now, going through all the shit that we watched and just threw away, didn't even give a shit about. And you guys are like, these are mind-blowing movies. We're like, oh, that one? You mean the movie I slept through to get to the movie that I was actually trying to watch? Yeah, fuck that. Or music that we're talking about. I understand that, but you have to understand the explosion of the advanced internet that actually was about 7 to 8 years after the normal internet that you kind of think of. So everyone thinks like mid to kind of late 90s for the internet sort of exploding in that way. And yeah, that was cool. But until bandwidth actually started to move to the masses, it was really the early 2000s that shit just got fucking real. Like everything changed. Honestly, the reason why we have streaming services now is because back then people are like, yo, why am I getting something solid when you're just giving it to me in data bytes? I mean, why can't I just get it digitally? What the fuck is this? Like, this conversation started a long time ago, so you're welcome. But anyway, let me take it to the 80s, because I grew up in so many weird periods of time that this shit's going to make sense why I'm going to again point out goddamn monsters. I would point out they probably need to be hunted, but I'm not sure what they did was completely illegal. It was just horrible human beings. So anyway, you have to understand the diaspora of music recording that we have all gone through in our lives. If you're as old as I am, I'm early 40s, so figure it out from there. So I'm going to start with an understanding of my father. My father is the biggest music lover I've ever come across. I can prove that by pointing out that I am one of 6. He only has 5 children, but I'm pretty sure his record collection was somewhere in the order. And I'm almost positive none of us were actually beating the record collection, at least in the original form. This man had vinyls and 40s, whatever the hell you guys like to call it. I don't know the terms. I never really gave a shit about. going back so long and so valuable, he didn't give a shit. Like, he had stuff that probably could have made us wealthy, or at least kind of rich, or at least not moving around like we were some sort of army family. But he's like, nah, fuck that. I'm gonna play this shit because that's why I buy it. I didn't buy it to sell it later. I'm buying it to listen to it. He loved those records. And that's what I grew up around. So music, always around me. I think I talked about that a few times. But I'm just going to keep going. I'm also going to share a fun story where my brother thought he was going to be a DJ, and he took his favorite record, Shaka Khan, and he was going to mimic it. And he did on my dad's brand new stereo, not understanding that those needles are a little bit different. So my dad had that stereo for about 5 minutes. But don't worry, because the Smith curse around fucking music continues. Let me move forward to the late 80s. Now we are trying to be mobile. We are fucking moving up in the world. We are all good. We ain't good. We're not just good enough to listen to music at home. Oh, no. That's for poor people. We take our music to go. So we got Walkmans. We got boom boxes. And that was fucking awesome until you blow your goddamn wad on the 20,000 batteries that you had to fucking put into those devices to make them work for like a good continuous 2 hours. Like, honestly, I grew up not really having air conditioning until I was about, 15. And then when I got it, we had to partially use it because we didn't have any fucking money. So my mom literally like would give me hours that I could use it. That was like what the boom boxes and the Walkman were. But don't worry, because it doesn't get worse. It gets way worse. So then the Lords gave us the CD man, and you think we couldn't be fucking told shit, because in between the CD man and the Walkman, I'm skipping over the fact that the thing I'm about to talk about later in the grocery store, that weird aisle that had nothing but random shit, like the batteries that you definitely needed, but it was kind of at the end, so you never really had to go into that aisle. Where if you actually took a step into that aisle, back in the 80s, it was absolutely covered with videotapes, just tapes, all these different classifications, all these different things that if you're just a moron, you'll be able to tape over. Like I could tape over my brother's favorite album with some Sugar Hill Gang back when it had a weird explosion in the early 90s. Don't ask me. I was 12, but I was down for it. I fucking couldn't figure out how to. We didn't have streaming service. We didn't have things on demand. So I grabbed one of the tapes I knew was open to record and record over it to tape from the radio, because yeah, that's the best you're gonna do. Or be a weird kid like me and take VHSs and tape parts of MTV. I've talked about that, but I ain't got time for that, so I'm just gonna keep it moving. So anyway, while all this is going on, by the time we got to CD man, we were you couldn't tell us shit. So this was awesome. You still had to spend a goddamn $100 on batteries just to keep it moving. And also, you had to be a goddamn ballerina to move through and not have it skip on you every 2 seconds. Because if you even so much as pass gas silently, this thing may even start skipping. And sometimes when it starts skipping, forget about it. It was done. It was just like, whatever, it's temperamental, it's upset. It's upset with you for fucking up its vibe. So it's just not going to work. So by the time we get to the early 2000s and internet has exploded, we are now upon the precipice of what music had become. The reason why you have streaming the way it is now is because generations like mine and what we had to go through. And this is when we got a dual situation. It was like, honestly, if this was the future, this was our hovering board and our flying cars, we just didn't appreciate it like we did in the 90s.
Right.
We had the ability to record from our computers, and we had the ability to make CDs. And this created monsters. It created fucking assholes who could do that and held dorm rooms to goddamn absolute hostage situations. Like monsters. They might as well have been fucking Nino Brown from New Jack City. They were that goddamn ruthless. They took over dorms and they would just absolutely control your weekend. They would control your social life. If you even thought you were going to get a recorded, your own mix CD, and you wanted to get it in time for whatever the fuck you had coming up, you better be on their good side. Because if not, it didn't matter how much money you had. You were at their whim and control. And that is the era that I wanted to talk about. And I did talk about. I had to give you the story. It's early 2000s with the goddamn monsters who fucking made us go up those weird grocery aisles that had now had CDs, and we're just buying them by the bolo, buying spools of CDs just so we can bring it to the whatchamacallit, the Duke of whatever dorm you live in, or Duchess.
Yeah, the Duke of New York.
And honestly, just hope that we would do anything. And honestly, this is this is what made us criminals. This is what pushed us to LimeWire and what was the other one? Neptune and all the other ones that obviously I never did.
What are you talking about, RaShaun? I don't know.
I don't know what you're talking about.
What are you talking about?
I never had to get rid of fucking computers because of all the viruses that I downloaded from one bootleg version of a song that actually wasn't the song to begin with, but that's okay.
We are
I was
talking,
pushed that.
We are talking on the record.
Monsters.
We are talking on the record, and most of us will cop to doing, all kinds of drugs, including cocaine and what have you, before we admit that we were ever on any of those services.
Go ahead. Fuck with copyright law. See what happens.
Yeah, exactly. No. We're backing away. I'm just gonna go do a bump of coke here.
I mean, shout out to I think there's like 3 people that actually got busted and actually like had a criminal charge put against them. Some I think were even. I don't know if they got full jail time, but it was definitely part of their sentencing. And one person had to pay like 250 grand or something. I think it eventually got dismissed like years later. But holy shit. I mean, like they definitely hung that over everyone's head. But like I said, because these CD-ROM creating oligarchs, we were all forced to do horrible things.
All right. I am going to say that we now have a parenthetical on this title for this episode, which is goddamn monsters. That's for sure. Right? That's the parenthetical that's going to come after it.
I may have to clean up later what I meant by goddamn monsters. And I'll do it right now, which is they were fucking awful people. They were goddamn monsters.
It's funny though, when you were initially starting with that, I thought you were just talking about the record industry in general. And
I thought that's where it was going too.
I thought that's where you're going. And then I was like feeling really guilty because I like Kelly Clarkson sometimes. And I feel like total shit because of it, because I feel like it's completely the record industry putting its junk in my face and be like, you're going to like this. And I do. I don't know why. It's just, terrible.
Or she's talented. You like her stuff.
He's talented too.
That's the best part about music. I mean,
in a jest, but at the same
time. We
haven't
done a music you're ashamed of episode, but we could totally.
That's gotta happen. Yeah. Well,
that's the best part about the 90s is that's the one shot answer. Like honestly, the 90s covers it all.
90s, definitely covers quite a bit. We can definitely do that.
When was the last time you listened to the song "How Bizarre"?
Just a couple days ago. I know how bizarre is 1997, and I moved to LA in 1997. I was like clinically depressed. I was out of like my first serious relationship. I drove around the city all the time because of my job, which could now be done on an iPhone. And I listened to the radio constantly. So there are certain songs that come on. I know it is 1997. I know the release year. Okay. I know Counting Crows songs from there. The Female of the Species is more deadlier than the male. I don't know if you remember that one. Trying to think. Hell, which was done by the, it was one of the swing bands out there.
Swing came back.
That's what I'm talking about. We literally,
we completely missed the fact that swing made a comeback in the 90s.
And I was living in LA during the swing movement. I mean, it was quite.
So you're in the 90s, the swing band.
Oh yeah, it was all that stuff. Listen to that. I did go to the Brown Derby a couple times. I was not as cool as Jon Favreau ever was, but I did.
Neither was he.
He's a director now. Now he makes Star Wars, so we're all good. Well,
all right.
Gentlemen, that was fantastic. I love it. I do love it when we talk music. I'm glad that we still make space for it. As we move through and talk about pop culture and the social commentary that comes with it. It is a fantastic time. While we have you here, though, you want to make some pop culture and social commentary your own, make sure to head on over and rate and review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. Give us that old 5-star, talk about some fluffy sheep, whatever it's got to take, whatever you got to do, put in that description. But, help us feed the algorithm, help us tickle the algorithm's nuts, whatever it does to make it happy. I have no idea, or lack of nuts. I don't know. Lady nuts. Does that sound right? Now just doesn't really quite line up there, but we can really use your help on there. Follow us on the socials. We are the Steam Gentleman Podcast on Facebook. We are Do You Even Steam Bro on Instagram. We've been having a lot of fun on there, a lot of action going on. Feel free to jump on, make some comments as well. Please, if you feel like commenting on the show or giving us ideas, or, just want to say something like Greg is extra handsome and, I love RaShaun, any of those things, you can put any of that on. We have an email address. It's doyouevensteambro@gmail.com. doyouevensteambro@gmail.com.
How are they seeing Greg, by the way?
Who knows? Greg's beauty comes through that mic. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, I mean, if they want to say it, they want to say it.
I mean, come on, listen to that voice right there.
I'm just wondering how they're seeing you.
If I'm not worth at least one person, stalking me, then I mean, it's just, every person's good enough to have someone stalk them. I'm going to say
honest
that.
Here.
By the way, you left your lights
Greg,
on.
though. That's why we brought Greg into the crew here. Okay, right? That's all we said. We need some stalker bait, so we're gonna bring Greg. We're gonna bring Greg along. But,
by the way, you need some more cereal.
There we go. All right. Yes. Well, with that, actually, I'm going to turn it over to our own stalker bait there, Greg. What you got going on as we're moving on into the rest of our week and beyond? What you got to look forward to?
Like I said last time, just moving into full fall mode, saying goodbye to the sun.
Yeah. Make friends with it.
I don't mean to brag. I don't mean to boast, but I like hot butter on my breakfast toast.
We went right back there. We went back to
he said Rapper's Delight. It's been in my head ever since. So
there we go. Going right back to it.
Yeah, it's been my brother's head too. He's still holding a grudge on the many things I've done as a kid.
Bebop, Scooby-Doo. Well, guess what, America, we love you because you rock and you roll with so much so you can rock till you're 101 years old. That was it.
That's it. Now we're just gonna be keeping that in our heads the rest of the day. Well,
yes, America. That's why I almost got my ass kicked too, or from. I should say. I almost got my ass kicked for those lyrics.
RaShaun, what do you got going on as we move on to our week and beyond?
Oh yes, Captain Decision Maker over here has definitely got to figure out and on Monday morning. But you thought based off the subject that we're talking about that I didn't have room for my public service announcement, but absolutely not, because here I am next to the Google machine. And I'm learning that someone is taking time off of their job that they're not doing very well to produce shitty music. So I'm gonna say once again, Mr. Vin Diesel, step it up, sir. Let's pick a lane. Let's just get in one lane and let's ride out just a couple of years, man. You should be able to outlast, at least in one lane direction, the lifespan of fucking lawn darts. Like let's just see what happens.
I'm kind of with Vin Diesel on this just because of his face. I feel like his hope is he can just pass himself as a bald Drake. So I don't know. I'm kind of with him on this. This could totally work. Bald Drake.
He's no Eddie Murphy, so he should really maybe focus on one thing. Or hey, if he just wants to go to music, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Also, kids, look up Eddie Murphy music video or the making of.
I'm just telling you this right now. I can't execute these plans this week, but this is my grand plan and my grand goal heading into this week is one. Getting Vin Diesel on the show like that we have to do sometime.
You just want to see me get beat up.
I mean, if he comes to your house on Zoom, I'm going to be impressed. Like maybe we can just get him in the Zoom room and he can throw punches at you on the screen. I don't know, but we'll work on it from that. But that's number one. And number two, if we can ever get dick pill money off this show or mattress money or little blue, of meal services, right? That's the holy trinity of podcast money.
Don't aim so high now.
I am just saying I'm gonna rent a room for the night and I'm going to let us all get extremely drunk and party. And I'm just going to play.
Where is this going?
I'm going to play Started from the Bottom, by Drake again and again, just for Drake, right? That's how that night's going to go again and again. That's how that's going to be.
A lot different than I thought it was going to, and based off of how you start that night.
Because I was like, are our wives coming? Like,
what is going on?
Yeah. Of course they are. They're going to do what they always do. Just shake their heads and be like, God, how do we end up with these nerds? All right. Well, loving it, guys. Loving being here with you as always. Fantastic. Thanks so much for coming out and, chatting and bullshitting for an hour and 10. We love it. In the meantime, this is yours truly, the Birdman, Josh, telling you to keep your heat up and keep your head of steam on.